Hey, what's good guys? CyberMage here, and in this video we are going to be doing Abuse OpenID Connect and GitLab for AWS access. So this is a much more fun lab. Personally, I learned quite a lot. I don't know much about GitLab or GitHub and how it works. So yeah, there's quite a lot of learning that was done in this lab. This is going to be quite a long video, I believe, because there's going to be a lot of things that I am going to be doing as well. So yeah, before we begin, I also want to note that in the last video, I did say that I skipped a lab which was involving Blue Team, and I asked in the Discord server about it, and I was correct. It's that is not going to be on the exam. They're pretty much just teaching you it because as a red teamer or pen tester, you should have a good knowledge of the defenders and what they're doing, and when you're recommending the business on how they could secure their network or how they got compromised, you would then know, you can make recommendations to that company. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Let's start by reading the scenario. In this case, as part of our red team engagement for the global company Huge Logistics, we have harvested AWS credentials from a code repository and also phished an employee with a maldoc to compromise their workstation. So maldoc being a malicious document. And when it mentions AWS credentials, we can see right here we have the AWS credentials, and the phished employee is going to be over here. This is the username and password for that phished employee. From this foothold, we have also identified that against best practices, the employee, Paul Harrison, is using a disposable email service, maldrop.cc, with corporate accounts. So disposable email services meaning temporary emails, which in this case we'll use to gain like temporary pin, right, to log in. Well, we'll get to that, but pretty much it's accessible by anybody. It's publicly available temporary email, and the security issue is that he's using it with his corporate accounts. We have gained access to their GitLab account, can move deeper inside their infrastructure and demonstrate impact by accessing secret data. So yeah, the learning outcomes here, we're going to use Cloud Fox. We're going to use OpenID Connect to get AWS files or files from AWS. We're going to enumerate IAM policies, assume roles, retrieve sensitive user data in this case, from EC2 instance metadata service, and then enumerate AWS secret manager. So yeah, I'm also going to read the real world context because I did think it's quite useful. So especially for this lab, when integrating GitLab with AWS via OpenID Connect, it's common for organizations to configure IAM trust policies that allow role assumptions from all repositories under their GitLab group or organization. So it's not specifying a specific project. It's making it quite broad, or the trust policies being quite broad, where it's only for under their GitLab group or organization. So such as this case, there's a wildcard character over here, and the organization would be over here. While this may simplify onboarding for CI/CD, it can introduce a severe security weakness. If any project under the GitLab group is compromised, whether through a malicious contributor or vulnerable pipeline, or a phish developer, an attacker can leverage the shared OIDC trust to assume the AWS role. And in this lab, we are going to find an AWS role that we can assume from the phished account, or phished developer, as it's mentioned here. Yeah. Since the role is granted to any projects within the organization, so it's not a specific project, it's any project. If we can compromise any repository, if we have access to any of the repositories, we don't even need the most privileged one, we'll be able to escalate our privilege. So yeah, the risk is compounded by the fact that yeah, I guess that is pretty much it. Okay, yeah, this is also a good point to note. To address widespread misuse of these patterns, AWS updated its IAM behavior in June 2025. So that is this month. To require secure by default conditions, new or modified roles that trust shared OIDC providers like GitHub.com must validate claims such as sub and odd odd, or the API call fails. So sub odd being audience, and sub I forgot about what sub is, but odd being audience. So it's trying to like go to a specific we'll get to it honestly. Yeah, it's gonna be better in the walkthrough. Well, yeah, I don't think they have it in the walkthrough from what I yeah, but it's basically okay. Overall, it's simplifying and going to a specific repository and stop making it broad, so you can't do something like this organization thing. Yeah, it's in a condition place, so it's not going to be over here, but it's going to be like a condition that's going to limit its access. And the main thing to note here is, even though this has been changed, the issue is that existing roles with overly permissive configuration remain active. So basically, anything that you make after June 2025, it's going to have this effect, but there's so many stuff that have not been edited or have not changed. And in that case, it would just remain that way. So this is still very abusable today. So yeah, let's start by going through logging into GitLab. Since we did notice from the scenario, we had GitLab access with our phished user. So I actually broke down this part into 3 or 4 steps. It could have been more, but I kept it for 4 steps just to simplify this video because it is going to be quite long and detailed. So yeah, let's first log in. I'm going to open this one and log in to GitLab first. GitLab. Let's sign in. And we already have our credentials saved over here, so we can just click sign in. And usually you wouldn't see this, right? If you click this over here, you're going to see all this file here with all this kind of like telling you what's going on. But although it is saying like it's also giving you the region, what is going on, and this could make some probably assume a role and all that. But in general, it wouldn't be like this, So you wouldn't have the answers right in front of you, but in this case, we do have it. But yeah, what am I missing? So the issue was that, oops, I think I made my first mistake actually. It's that let's log out of here. I don't know how to use GitLab, so bear with me. Over here, sign in. Okay, it's just signing me in directly. Let's try to log in from our Kali machine. Also, there was an issue with this lab that I pointed out. I told in the Discord server that, well, I wrote in the Discord server that it really doesn't make sense how we found the region and stuff like this, and it's been updated. So this is going to be a video on the updated version as well, which is much more smoother and makes sense. But yeah, let's sign in here. The reason why I'm doing it here is because it's supposed to ask us for a verification code, and I'm surprised it did not ask us that. So, which is why I'm just doing it over here. Maybe something with my host PC there. I don't know. We're going to use it here, and let's log in with the credentials. And our goal over here is to see if we can find any sensitive information in the repositories when we sign in. I'm also going to save it. And here we have it. They're asking us for a code now. And because we know that the user has registered using, I believe it's maldoc, what's it called? Maldrop.cc, and it's a public disposable email service. We could access this. So it's going to have like a URL like this, which is given over here. We would use this URL, and we could access the inbox, and it's not going to work right now. because I gotta remove this. Remove all of this actually. And there we go. We also have the email over here, so we can take that as well. I'm going to copy it from here. Just a staple one, right? So it's not going to be very different. It's always going to be that way. And we can click this over here, which says send a code to another address associated with this account, because we do know from the scenario that this disposable email service is used with corporate accounts. So let's use a different email and just send it to our maldrop.cc mailbox. And here we got the code. Let's go ahead, copy this and paste it in here. Let's refresh the page and we are in. So the first thing we would do is take a look at all the repositories and try to find any sensitive information we can. And in this case, we really don't have anything over here. No sensitive information, no passwords, no nothing that we could use. We are going to ignore what's in the file for now, because we're going to get to it in a bit more detail. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So no sensitive information here, no other repositories, nothing we can access. So let's go ahead and use our AWS credentials, the CLI credentials. So I'm also going to go into .aws over here. I'm going to remove all of this so we don't have any issues later on. And I'm also okay, let's go with AWS configure, and we'll call this profile 1 actually. Let's copy the access key. Paste it in here. Secret key. And we'll leave it as that. We'll also go ahead and do AWS. Let's see. Get caller identity profile 1. And we are the user pen tester. All right then. So the first thing that we're going to do is I want to know what type of policies are attached to my user. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go straight to, I believe it's step 2 now. So I'm going to ignore this and I'm going to get to explaining all of this in a bit. So let's go ahead and list the managed policies of our user. So username here, pen tester, that's who we are, and profile, which is profile 1. And we see we have access denied, so we can't really see anything there. Let's look for inline policies. So for that, we're just going to remove the word attached. And there we go. We cannot do that. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to try to use AWS enumerator. We could use CloudFox, but I'm going to use both, but we're going to start with AWS enumerator. So AWS enumerator, and we can do red. And we're just going to remove the region since we don't know the region. And I'm actually going to zoom in as well. Keep forgetting about that. And yeah, let's paste this here. And let's go ahead and create a file. So we got this .env file. Let's go ahead and run the enumerator command. Feature enum services all. And we see that we have an error here which says an AWS region is required. We really don't know which region things could be on, and it's going to be pretty annoying to use every single region to run AWS enumerator, right? It's going to take quite a long time. This is where CloudFox does come in, you know, it enumerates all the regions. But in this case, say we did want to use AWS enumerator, and we had access to a website, right? So we can say that we have access to this over here, the domain. What we can do is we could ping the domain, foodlogistics.com, and over here we could see that it gets, which is, on an S3 bucket, S3 website, and it gives us a region over here, US East 1, and it also gives us an IP. So this is in the case that we have the website URL. We could go ahead and just ping it to get the IP or this information over here. Say we don't get this and we just have the IP and we don't even have the website or anything like that. We just have an IP in that case. There's a script that Pwned Labs gives now. It's in the updated course. So go back over here, and it's called the regionfinder.py. This is the script pretty much, and all you have to do is Python, what's it called, region finder, and we can just go ahead and put the IP that we have. So in this case, it's giving US East 1. This should also give US East 1. And there we go, US East 1. Now let's run this file with AWS region equal US East 1. And I should do this. And there we go. And this is in a new .env file, not in the .aws file or directory that we made before. So we did make it over here, but now we're going to our home page directly, and it's over there. So let's go ahead and run AWS enumerator, enum services all. And we can see over here, we have 3 IAM commands that we can run. So that is something that we can look at. We are going to check this out. And if we got the region wrong, for example, there could be stuff in other regions still. It doesn't have to be in US East 1. We just assume that things are probably in here because it's in the websites is hosted here and stuff. So we just assume that, hey, they're probably going to have other stuff in this region, but that, it doesn't have to be the case. For the IAM policy things, sorry, not IAM policy, but the IAM commands that we can do, this is global. So it doesn't have, so it's not going to be really related to that region. We can just find that again over here. The IAM commands that we are able to run, they're global. So it's not really attached to that region. So it really doesn't matter whether we put US East 1 over here or US West 2, whatever. It really doesn't matter. It's going to show up as you can run IAM commands. But for the other things like S3 or EC2, it's not going to show up. So IAM commands we can run, and this is taking quite a while, but there shouldn't be anything else besides this. So we can go ahead and just cancel it. And we want to see what type of IAM commands we can run. So let's do this. Let's do dump services IAM. And we can get users, list roles, and list users. So let's go ahead and try to list roles in this case. Or yeah. We're gonna start off with list roles. Actually, I'm just gonna go with list users. So AWS IAM list users. And the profile, we got to put profile 1. And we can see we have 4 users over here. AWS managed user, Bob, Luis, and Pentester. So let's go ahead and enumerate the roles over here. And that is the command that I have put over here. I'm going to copy this. Then put profile 1. In this case, we use grep role name and grep AWS to ignore the AWS roles, because there's going to be a lot more roles if we include AWS roles in it. We can see that there's 3 managed or customer managed roles: engineering, GitLab, Terraform deploy, and organization account access role. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. I'm just going to do this over here and just do grep the AWS. And it's going to give us the trust policy for this as well. It is going to include other things such as this, which doesn't have a role name, it just has a path. But we're going to go ahead and look for the role name ones, which we had over here, which is engineering. And we can see 2 people can assume this role, Bob and Luis. We don't know what this role can do, but we know that these 2 users can assume this role. When it comes to the GitLab Terraform deploy role, we can see that we have a federated principal, which means it's from GitLab. In this case, it's not on AWS, it's from another service. In this case, GitLab.com. It's able to assume this role. The audience is GitLab. As you can see, GitLab, the audience is featured here, and GitLab.com is here, meaning it has to be from GitLab.com. And here we have the sub, and this is the project that we have to be in to assume this role. Now, this is where the vulnerability comes, or the misconfiguration in this case, is that this wild character allows anything within this huge logistics project. So if we go here, we notice that, hey, this is huge logistics over here, and we do have access to one of their projects, this one, which we're able to edit. So that does mean that we could assume this role. And the final one is this, which is pretty much something we can ignore. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. And yeah, before we continue on further, I'm also going to use CloudFox to do the exact same thing. So CloudFox, in this case, it's going to get the same result, to be honest, because although in AWS enumerator, you do have to specify a region, and if the region is wrong, all right, that's fine. If the region is right, you're going to get it. But even if the region is wrong or right, the IAM commands are going to show, right? So in CloudFox, the same case is going to happen. It's going to go through all the regions automatically, and it's just going to find the IAM commands, right, and run it. So let's go ahead and put profile 1 all check. And yeah, we're just going to do the exact same thing, but with CloudFox this time. So I'm going to pause the video. I don't want to make this too long or too hard to watch. And we're going to come back right when this is done. All right, so the scan finished. And we can see here that I believe it's going to be in enum results. So we can go into enum results. And we can see all of this over here. I'm not sure if it's going to be in this directory. I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, we can just cat, for example, one of these. Actually, we can just do ls. And we can see there's nothing in any of this. Like you could tell by the 222 file is empty, but we do have something here with the size much bigger. So let's go ahead and just cat this. And voila, a bunch of stuff here. Pen tester role or user over here as well. And yeah, so we could organize all of this as well. So we can just let's do echo. Let's paste this whole thing here. and let's do JQ. Organize it. And it didn't really work that well. Oh, whatever. You can literally just put this in ChatGPT and it'll do it for you, to be honest. But another way that I usually prefer doing is that at the end of the scan, it has this um, thing over here that's written, cached AWS data written to this. I usually prefer going over here. So cd in this directory here, and it has all of this things over here. And now we can also check this, checking the file size. And there we do have a hit on the get resource policy, I think. Might just be the default value. So there is a lot of stuff though, always with, and here we have it. List roles and a bunch of users. So let's go ahead and list users using this. And there we go, much cleaner. And we also had list roles. We can go ahead and check what that has. I'm not 100% sure whether we can enumerate the roles as well. All right, list roles. Actually, we do have, sorry, bro, I'm so brain dead right now. We do have access to it. All right, yeah, we already did that before. So yeah, we can see all the roles over here. And yeah, that is pretty much it. We can also just organize this by using the same grep role name and then this over here. And there we go. So when it comes to the assume policy here, this is where we can just take this and go to a website called URL Decoder. URL Decoder. Decode. And there we have it. It's much more cleaner. So yeah, there we go. And if it gets quite messy, so for example, I think this is going to be a bit messy. Just copy this. Decode. And you can't read it properly. You can just take this and do the same command I did before, which is echo paste and pipe that into JQ, and it's organized now. So yeah, that is pretty much it with CloudFox. We're gonna come back probably to do it again with a different user. But for now, we can continue on. So just go into this directory. Okay. So at this point, we know we're going with the region US East 1, right? That's what we assume it's in. We have a couple of roles. Number one is the terraforming role can be accessed with the GitLab account that we have compromised. We could use that to assume that role. And we know that there's another role that Bob and the other user can assume. So we're going to go ahead and now, I believe it's going to step 2. Yep, everything done here. Yep. Condition to do. We're also able to get the role. Yep, this is another thing that we can do. So when we did AWS enumerator, dump IAM. Okay, we got to go back because that's where our file was. We also have, oh no, we have the get user one. We don't have the get role permission. I mean, we can still try this because obviously AWS enumerator doesn't give us all the permissions that we have. So let's go ahead and try this. And there we go. It also gives us information about the role when you're doing it, you know, via the AWS enumerator method where we found these commands and then we're going through each one and we can just get the role then. Perfect. So pretty much that's it. And yeah, it is getting the role in the case of CloudFox as well. So yeah, that is there. Let's go on to the next step. And step 3. And in this case now, we're going to get to the file. So let's go over here. This file over here. So it's in this project, use logistics. This is the name of it. This is the file. Let's go ahead and edit this. And we're going to just remove all of this and go to the file that's given in the lab. In this case, it's this. And I'm going to walk through each one of these portions as I do think that it's quite important to know. So we're putting a default region over here. And in this case, we're going to use the region that we found when we were using the website, right? So US East 1. This profile OIDC is referring to one of the variables that we are going to set in a bit. But it's just referring to this OIDC. It's going to let AWS know we're using OIDC, and it's going to reference our variables that we're going to make as well. I think I've wrote it down here, which is going to be a bit better. Nope, these are the variables. So I think maybe it's in step 1. Perfect. So this is, okay, so this AWS profile over here, which we're using, AWS profile. AWS uses profiles to know which credentials to use. Here it's OIDC, which implies you're using OpenID Connect based login. And there's going to be a variable that's going to be referenced to this OIDC. You're going to see it soon. Actually, I'm going to show you right now as we're going through it. I think it might be better that way. So settings, and let's go to, it's this. So variables, and yep, this AWS config file. We edit this, and we can see that it says profile here and OIDC. This is kind of what we're referencing. And in this profile, we have the role ARN, and this role ARN that we are going to use is in this variable, okay? And then this web identity token file, which it's going to fetch, is in this variable over here. So this profile, this AWS config file, is using these two things. This is going to contain the role, and this is going to contain the value of the token that it's going to fetch. Yeah, that is pretty much it. And this AWS config file has this value of profile OIDC, which is used over here. So this should make sense now. And now the OIDC, this is the job to run. This could be any name. So let's go over here. OIDC, this is the name of the job in your pipeline. You can name it anything. And it's like saying, hey, GitLab, here is a job to run. Now the image section over here, image has two things, name and entry point. This name over here, we can take a look at, first we'll focus on the image section in general. It tells GitLab to use a Docker image that has AWS CLI installed on it. So this image that it's referencing over here, this name of it, it's provided by Amazon, I believe, and it has AWS CLI installed on it, and it's using the latest, it's pulling the latest version of that Docker image, and it's going to use it to run commands on it, which is going to be over here, the commands to run on that. This entry point is going to override the default things that this Docker image runs, right? So if we look at this, entry point here, overrides the Docker container's default startup commands. Is it required? Not always, but recommended when using containers like Amazon AWS CLI. And when we look at this Amazon AWS CLI, it's a public Docker image from Docker Hub. And we can run it on GitLab CI/CD runner. And this runner is pretty much a process that executes your CI/CD jobs on GitLab's cloud shared or your machine's server. So in this case, it's going to be on GitLab's cloud. All right, then. So this ID over here is going to contain our token, GitLab OIDC token. Let's take a look at this value real quick. GitLab OIDC token over here. This value is going to be referenced over here. So yeah, this is going to be the token, and the token is going to contain the audience over here because the trust policy is going to verify whether the audience is correct, right? So we looked at the trust policy here. The trust policy here, the condition, it has to be equal to this, which we have mentioned over here. And the GitLab can generate a secure identity token during the job. This lets you log into AWS without storing secret keys. And this over here is the name of the environment variable GitLab will create that contains the token. Yes, if you're using, is it required? Yes, if you're using OIDC to authenticate to AWS. And odd means audience, and we've already covered this pretty much. And then this is just the script that we want to run. So we're going to go ahead and just see if this works. Now, one of the things that we're going to have to do when we're dealing with this is that every time you run this thing, okay, yeah, this web identity token is fine, it's perfect. Protect variable, expand variable reference, visible, all this is fine. We can look at this as well. File, this is a file, visible, protect variable, yep, and it's referencing those two. Everything is fine, but the role ARN is going to be different, and it's because every time you turn on your lab, you're going to have a different account ID. So in our case, if we just do what we can see over here, it's already, this is the account ID. We can just copy this and paste this over here and save changes. And we are good to go now. Let's go ahead and commit this. It's going to go ahead and assume the role, get the token, assign it to the variable, and then run our command. Let's go to jobs now. Secure build jobs. And there we go. We have assumed this role, GitLab Terraform deploy, and whatever this is. So let's go ahead and check out any AWS, buckets that exist, right? One of the things that was mentioned over here, I think we can go to, or we can close this one now. Do config file, we discussed all of this. We put this, yep. This is what is mentioned in the lab, so I just copied pasted over here. So Terraform and CloudFormation are common infrastructure as code languages used to manage cloud resources. So they're used to manage cloud resources using a language, infrastructure as code languages. It's common to store these automation files and any output files, such as Terraform state files, in AWS S3 buckets. So since we have assumed this role, we can pretty much imply or figure out that, hey, there might be S3 buckets that exist. Let's go ahead and list them now. And we're still using our region US East 1, the one that we found. The one that we found from the website or the domain that Huge Logistics is using. So let's edit this, edit file. AWS S3 ls. Just commit this. And voila, it showed us this bucket. Let's go ahead and try to see what files are in this bucket. You can go ahead and edit this command again. And just put this over here. So commit changes. There we go. Let's go to jobs. And let's wait for this to finish. And there is two files over here, ec2.pem and backup.txt. So let's get these files. We're going to put this in an artifact, which will zip all these files or create a zip file containing these two things. So let's go here and run this command actually here. And I am going to update this and make it US East 1. US East 1. And yeah, US East 1. That is correct. And we can see here the artifact section in your GitLab CI/CD job is used to preserve and share files created during the job so they can be downloaded from the GitLab UI, passed to downstream jobs, and so on. Yeah. Let's continue on and commit this. Let's go back to jobs and now let's wait. And we have an error. And what it says is fatal error. An error occurred. No such bucket when calling the list object v2 operation. The specified bucket does not exist. So we are getting an error running this command. And the reason why is because I am super stupid. Every bucket that you list, there's a new ID over here, and I just use an old one. So we're going to go back to jobs. I'm going to look at the old job to get that bucket. So, yep, this is it. There we go. And perfect. Found one matching artifact files and directory, and it seems to have worked. So let's go ahead and get this artifact. And this is 18 seconds ago, so it is us. Let's go ahead and download this by clicking this. And there we have it. I'm going to go ahead and show in folder. This is in downloads. I'm going to move this to, I think, the Kali directory is fine. Perfect. Right over here. So let's go ahead and unzip this. And we get two files, backup.txt and this ec2.pem, which is probably a key to access an EC2. So we have this over here. You can check what it contains. Perfect. The private key and the backup.txt. Let's go ahead and check that out. It has a couple of things. It does have some permissions over here of this user. Seems that this is that user's permission. We can go up further and see eventually that. Let's continue going. We have over here the credentials to log in with this user Luis. So let's go ahead and do that actually. AWS configure profile. What is going on? Why is it not working? That is weird. I'm going to try it again. All right. Hopefully this doesn't mess up anything, but let's copy this, paste it here. It's the wrong one. It's actually very confusing why this is happening, but I think I made it work. And let's go AWS configure. All right, AWS STS get caller identity profile. And perfect. Collapse this. And the first thing we should do is take a look at our permission. So let's do, actually, I'm just going to reference this. Let's go ahead and list the attached user policy. And we do notice that there is one policy attached called view IAM permissions. Let's go ahead and get the policy version of it. And hopefully then we can list out what this actual policy is, what it contains. And we don't have permissions to list the version. Maybe we could get the current version of it using this, get some details about it, which is going to reveal the current version. All right, so we can't do that either. We could also try get policy version. Version ID version 1, just taking a random guess, there might be version 1 available, and we did get access denied, so we can just ignore that. I was just trying different commands to see if it would work. So we can't do any of that, but we do remember that we could assume the role, one of the roles, which was called engineering. So there isn't really any point of assuming a role that doesn't have any permissions to it, right? So what we're going to go ahead and we are going to try to do is we are going to see what type of role policies are attached to that role name that we found before. So let's go ahead and do that. And let me zoom in a bit. I feel like it's a bit too far. And we can't do that either, apparently over here. So we can't list attached role policies. Maybe we can list inline policies attached to this role. So list role policies. And we can't do that either. So what I'm going to do at this point, which would be the only thing that we can do, is let's assume the role and see whether we have different permissions that allow us to do these type of things. Let's go ahead and do that. Assume the role using this command, and this is going to fail because I got to change this account ID. Oops, that's not going to work. Is not authorized to assume role. All right, then let's go ahead and go to AWS IAM list roles, just what I want to do. I'm going to zoom in as well. I'm going to check the ARN of this. And here we have it, role engineering. There we go. We have assumed the role. Let's go ahead and try to log in with this new permission set. We can go AWS configure profile. Let's just copy this, paste in here, paste this here, and just click enter, enter. Do AWS configure, set AWS session token. And there we go, AWS, SDS, get caller identity. Invalid client. So let's take a look over here. We have this, plus O. That is strange. So another technical difficulty, we should not be having this. Let's go ahead and log in again, AWS configure. I'm going to go ahead and pull this profile, engineering 1. Configure. And that is why. I just realized why. It's because we didn't add a profile to this command. Let's go ahead and do profile and do this. Let's do the original one. Great. So now if we just do this, nope. Now if we just do this, it should work. Perfect. Let's go ahead and do some of the commands to list permissions. So we're going to go ahead and list the role policies attached to this role, which is engineering. And we're using our profile. So let's see if we can do that. And we are able to do that, and we have one policy attached. So let's go ahead and get the version for this policy using get policy, getting some information about it. We're also going to change this to the correct ARN. And once that is shown, you can see version 1 is here, and I've already copied the command. We can go ahead and do this over here to get that policy information. So remove all of this, copy this, paste it here. And we get some information here, such as EC2 describe instance that we can do. Actually, let me just list out everything first. Perfect. So action, we can do EC2 describe as long as it's on US West 2. So there's a specific region, and we can do it on all resource, but it's going to be obviously restricted to EC2s. We can also do list buckets and list our get objects in this bucket in this case. So if we do AWS S3 LS, paste this here, and do profile release engineering, we do get those two files. We can also do list attached user policies, list attached role policies, which we just did. We did get the policy version as well for this role over here, get policy. We got it for this role or this policy. We got this policies information. We also did the get policy version just now. This is the command we did, get policy version. But we haven't done list attached policies. And let's take a look at what our other user, the regular Lewis, had without the assume role. They did have a view IAM policy role. I just want to take a look at what that does. Maybe there's some command that's hidden in that account that we have missed or could have used. So let's go ahead and do AWS IAM list attached. Let's remove this. User policy. And you can see here the resource or any, so any IAM principal. This is what we got over here. So let's just do get policy now. Get policy. Oh my goodness, what is going on? And we see that there is version 1 available. Let's do get policy version. Let's go ahead and do version. Isn't this it? Version ID version 1. And we can see we only had the ability to list attached user policies and list user policies on IAM resources. That's pretty much it of what we can do. So we couldn't get any information about this, but yeah, only just listing attached user policies and listing user policies. So yeah, that is pretty much it. So we're going to go ahead and try to do this EC2 describe instance on US West 2. Yeah, that is pretty much it, because we do have the PEM file and we can try against this. All we need is the IP for this, and we can go ahead and try with our default username just as Luis, the one that is given. So let me just take a look at how long this video is, and it is about to be more than 1 hour long. But yeah, let's go ahead and do AWS EC2 describe instance. Let's go ahead and do profile this, and then the region which is specified. So region US West 2. And we do have a bunch of information here now about an EC2. And in this case, we have the private IP right over here, this private IP. We could also do this by means of AWS enumerator, but we should have specified the correct region to do this. And if we do it by means of CloudFox, it's going to automatically go with all the regions, and it would work. So in this case, let's go ahead and try with CloudFox because I do want to show that. Let's go ahead, CloudFox, AWS. Instead of this, we're going to go with our profile over here. So paste that there. And let's pause the video and wait until this is over. I'm actually not going to pause right now. Let's go ahead and do Shamond 400 on the hem file. There we go. Should be good to go now. And yeah, now let's pause. We made this file already. So now we're just going to run CloudFox and then we can log into the EC2 using this fem file. All right, so be right back and once this CloudFox finishes. All right, I'm back and it's over. So let's go ahead and go into this directory over here that it gave us. And we can see all of this over here. Let's take a look at any abnormal file size. Specifically, we're looking at US West something. What was it? Oh, we'll see it. So this seems pretty different than the rest. So I'm just going to copy this just in case. List users, list roles. Nope. We do have it over here actually. Describe instance US West 2 JSON and this .gob file. Just cat this file over here, and it should give us that exact information that we got. Perfect, and the private IP is this. So let's go ahead now and SSH into this. .pem. Let's just try with the regular account name being the user or the username, regular username being the actual username of this. And yeah, let's just go ahead. And we are in. Great. So let's go ahead first and change this to step 4. And now we're going to curl and try to get the MDS version 1, check if it works, get some metadata out of it, or metadata, whatever you call it, pronounce it. And it says unauthorized. So apparently this MDS version 1 does not work. So we can go ahead and try MDS version 2. First, we need the token. So we're going to run this command over here to get the token. Now the token is saved in this variable. So now we can use this variable token in the header to curl the metadata. And there we go. So it's all working properly. And as we notice over here from the output that there was no IAM category in the output, so the instance doesn't have an IAM instance role attached. So over here, no IAM. However, one of the very important things to look for is at user data. And the user data is going to be contained in the latest and user data section. This user data is basically used by EC2s to, it contains the startup instructions, which automatically runs when the instance first boots. So yeah, that is basically it. User data can pretty much contain sensitive information, such as credentials used as startups, which is quite common. We can go ahead and just copy this and query this endpoint. And there we go. We do have access keys over here of a user. And we know it's a user because it starts with AKIA. Yeah, and that is pretty much it. Let's go ahead and use these over here. I'm going to zoom in as well. Let's go ahead and use this. So configure profile. We're going to call it profile 2. We don't know who this is right now. It's not mentioned over here. We're just going to call it profile 2. So let's copy this. And let's copy this as well. AWS SDS get color identity profile 2. And we are the user Bob. So we know Bob can also assume that role, which are the engineering role. But let's go ahead and see if this Bob user has any attached policies or anything different that we can use or gain access to. So AWS IAM list attached user policies profile 2 and username is Bob. Now we notice that we cannot do it. We don't have permissions to do it. We can try it with inline policies as well. We can remove this. And that doesn't work either. So we do remember that our role that we assumed, the engineering role we assumed as Luis, does have the list attached policies, list a role attached policies, all those types of permissions. So why don't we change our profile to that Luis engineer profile, Luis engineer profile, and look for username Bob. Remember, the resource area was all. Apparently, this doesn't work. It's not authorized to perform. User Bob. Why is it not working? List user policies. Okay, we don't have list user policies, but we have list attached user policies. And I spelled that wrong. Attached user policies. And there we go. So we now notice that Bob can read from this or has this permission, read secret manager. Another way we can do this, I believe read secret manager is a global, it's not region bounds. So give me a moment. Someone's at the door right now. So I'm going to pause the video. All right, I'm back. So let's continue on where we were. So yeah, read secret manager is not region bound. So if we do AWS enumerator with any region, we should see this permission. So actually, I want to go ahead and try that. So let's go ahead and first remove .env file, and we can do AWS enumerator cred. We're just going to use US East 1. Any region is fine. And we can go here and do this. Oops. This is the access key, not the secret access key. And AWS enumerator enum service all. So we'll let this run and we should see that access to run this command or what commands are in here. And it's a good idea to actually look at the commands. We haven't done that yet. So we are going to just zoom in like this and zoom in here. Let's go ahead and do AWS IAM get policy. Let's get the policy first. And right here, we're going to go ahead and get the current version of this policy. Unable to locate creds because we forgot our profile, which is profile 2. Is not authorized to perform. Okay, it's not profile 2, my bad. Release engineer. And there we go. Now we can just do get policy version. Also do version ID version 1. And looking at this, we can see secret manager. There is one command that we can run, right? And over here, it says we can run 2 commands, list secrets, and we can also get the secret value. So let's go ahead and actually use this to see what command we can run. So I'm going to go ahead, AWS enumerator, dump services, just secret manager, and we can list secrets. So remember, AWS enumerator doesn't get all the commands. So there would be commands outside of that, which it shows. So list secret is here, but it doesn't pick up get secret value. So let's go ahead and list the secret. So we can close this over here. I'm going to zoom in here. And let's go ahead and do this command. And our profile this time is not going to be Bob, it's going to be profile 2. That's where we stored Bob's credentials. And why did it not work? Oh, you must specify a region. I mean, it shouldn't matter. Let's do region US East 2. I know we did US East 1 for the AWS enumerator. I just want to see if this actually works. So this profile 2. And we don't get it. Okay. US East 1 doesn't work. What about US West 2? One we found where our EC2 was held, right? It was in US West 2. So let's go ahead and check that out. And it is in US West 2. So I get it. I guess it is region bound. I'm actually going to double check this. Secret manager region bound. Oh, I actually checked this before. I guess I forgot. And yes, it is a regional service. All right, then, my bad. So it is bound to a region, and we did find the region, US West 2. Apparently, I don't know how that other AWS enumerator. Nope. Yeah, we put US East 1. So yeah, I'm surprised that worked. Something I don't know of. So if you guys know, just comment down below. And yeah, this is the flag. So let's get the value over here. Just use this command here. Secret ID is going to be the name this. And the profile here is profile 2. I'm not going to run the command because then it is going to show the flag. And also, if AWS enumerator doesn't work, we always have CloudFox to fall back on to see what we can find. So that is there too. I think from my experience of doing this lab, I think it's best to just run both tools. It's just better that way. But yeah, that is it for this lab. Hopefully you guys learned something and it was fruitful for you people watching. And yeah, the next lab is also blue teaming 1. So I'm going to ignore that. I am going to do that myself and I'm not going to post about it. But for week 3, that is going to be my next video. So yeah, take care and see you.